All right, welcome to Hoops Tonight here at The Volume. Happy Monday, everybody. Hope all of you guys are having a great start to your week. Got a really fun mailbag today. Lots of really interesting questions from you guys. We're going to have an opportunity to hit several teams that we haven't hit yet this summer. We've got 9 questions, lots of really interesting stuff, lots of fun stuff to get to. Let's get started. You guys know the drill. Before we get started, subscribe to the Hoops Tonight YouTube channel so you don't miss any more of our videos. Follow me on Twitter at _JasonLT so you guys don't miss show announcements. Don't forget about our podcast feed, wherever you get your podcasts under Hoops Tonight. It's also super helpful if you leave a rating and a review on that front. Jackson's doing great work on our social media feeds, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Make sure you guys follow us over there for more content throughout the year. And then last but not least, if you want to get mailbag questions into the mailbag, occasionally I'll tweet out asking for mailbag questions, but I also grab them from the YouTube comments. Remember, underneath our full episodes, write mailbag with a colon and then write your question. We'll get to them in our weekly mailbags throughout the rest of the year. All right, let's talk some basketball. First question. Every year, a young team has a major win totals jump. The Rockets last season, OKC in 2024, Sacramento in 2023, Memphis in 2022, the Suns in 2021, the Mavs in 2020, the Nuggets in 2019, etc. So why is nobody super high on the Spurs? This feels like the most obvious prediction ever to me. A roster that goes 12 deep with awesome talent and awesome defense. I struggle to see on paper the argument for either LA team or the Warriors having a better record than them this season. So let's dig into this a little bit deeper. I still think, even though those teams have their flaws, the LA teams, Golden State, some of these teams have their flaws in the playoff context, the top of the West is still ridiculously awesome. Oklahoma City won the title last year and is the prohibitive favorite to win the title again next year. Houston was the 2 seed last year and added Kevin Durant. Denver, I would argue, has the most talented roster they've had in the Jokic era. So a definitive top 3. And then after that, these are good. These are flawed teams. They have their issues. It may prevent them from winning the title, but these are really good teams that are going to be tough to beat on any given night in the regular season. The Lakers, Luka Doncic in a revenge campaign, a pissed off LeBron, Austin Reeves. They added DeAndre Ayton to their weakest position group. The Clippers, if they sign Bradley Beal, they'll be better than they were last year because they bolstered their front court depth with Brook Lopez and John Collins. The Timberwolves, they've literally made the conference finals twice in a row, and Anthony Edwards is improving dramatically every single year. The Warriors looked amazing post Jimmy Butler trade until Steph got hurt. They add Al Horford, they're an improved team. They haven't done anything else yet, but they are still very good. Dallas, Anthony Davis, Cooper Flagg, a ton of talent, albeit a little imbalanced. If Kyrie Irving returns at any point next season, they'll be super tough to beat. And I saw a video of him on the court shooting a basketball the other day. He's making progress. If he returns around, March or April, that's a tough team to beat. That is 8 really dangerous teams that will all go into the season thinking they can win the title. Now, the Spurs will be really good too. Obviously, Victor Wembanyama could be a top 5 player this year, potentially, right? De'Aaron Fox made my top 25 players last summer when we did our player rankings. They added a legit backup center in Luke Cornett, and there's a ton of young talent on this roster. Obviously, Dylan Harper has all-star potential. We've seen Carter Bryant look like they're kind of like most versatile perimeter defender at the 3 spot, something they didn't have on the roster before this. They have a young core already in place with guys like Jeremy Sohan, Devin Vassell, and Stephon Castle. That's a lot of talent. But all of those guys are super young. And there's a lot of variance in the potential outcomes there. Not just for how each individual player plays because they're young, but how well they all fit together as a basketball team. And I'd argue there's even variance with Wemby. He could be the 5th best player in the league next year, but he could also be somewhere around the 10th or 11th best if he, if his skill development doesn't take a leap or he struggles with health throughout the year. The point is, with a lot of these teams in the West, we know what they're going to look like because there's some continuity there. But we don't really know what the Spurs are going to look like. I actually think, and by the way, this is the Western Conference. There are a lot of good teams that end up in the play-in tournament. I actually think it's more likely than not that San Antonio ends up in the play-in tournament than them being a top 4 seed, for example. That doesn't mean I don't believe in San Antonio's core or that I don't believe in Victor Wembanyama. It just means that the top of the West is a bloodbath. And it's just really hard. In terms of racking up win totals, it's going to be hard for any team to rack up win totals, let alone a young team with a bunch of young players that have a wide variety of potential outcomes this year. As far as like Houston, because obviously we're looking at Houston last year as an example. Well, Jason, they're young too, right? Well, first of all, they had several vets in their rotation. Fred VanVleet is a vet who's won a championship. Dylan Brooks is a veteran who's become a really stable, solid starting three in this league. Steven Adams is a vet. And they had an elite unit. Their depth of perimeter defense talent was so off the charts that it caused nightly problems for every team on their schedule. I think Victor Wembanyama is certainly capable of anchoring an elite defense, but I don't think the roster as currently constructed is an elite defensive roster just yet. It's a lot of young players, a lot of theoretical guys that could fill certain roles, but I don't think they're quite yet the like top 5 type of defensive roster that Houston was. And I think they're a middle of the pack offense at best, right? These things take time. And a play-in appearance in the West, again, is nothing to make light of. The Warriors were a play-in team last year. I viewed them as a legitimate championship contender until Steph got hurt, right? The West play-in bracket has pretty good teams in it every single year. That's the nature of the conference. So yeah, does that mean I think they're going to finish, 10, 12 games below all those guys? No, but I could see them finishing 3-4 games below the top 4 seeds and end up in the play-in bracket because that's just the nature of the Western Conference. It has nothing to do with what San Antonio is capable of or the value that I see in their core. It's just the West is a bloodbath, man. And it's just difficult to just step in there and start kicking everyone's ass. All right, folks, something special is about to happen in the Big Easy. UFC 318 is coming to New Orleans, and it's absolutely stacked. DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the UFC, has all the action you need. We're talking Holloway versus Poirier 3, the trilogy, the BMF titles on the line. But more than that, this is Dustin Poirier's last fight. That's it. The final walk. One of the all-time greats. You taking Holloway's volume or Poirier's power? If you've never bet UFC with DraftKings, don't worry. Just pick something simple like a fighter to win and make your pick. That's it. Straightforward and easy. And check this out. New customers who bet just $5 get $150 in bonus bets instantly. That's a huge boost to get started. Don't miss Poirier's final fight. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app right now and use code HOOPS. That's HOOPS. That's code HOOPS for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Next question. What are the chances percentage-wise that the Wizards can be a playoff team this upcoming season? I personally love what they've done this offseason. This is a continuation of the question. I personally love what they've done this offseason. They have a nice mixture of intriguing young prospects and established veterans like Middleton, McCollum, and Smart. Are they a sneaky 8 seed? I think there's a pretty solid chance that the Wizards make the play-in bracket this year. And just by being there, that gives them a solid chance of getting one of the 8 playoff spots, right? I said before the draft that Tre Johnson was my favorite prospect. Not that he was the best prospect. I don't think he's the type of prospect that Cooper Flagg is. Just that he was my favorite to watch. Because his skill set of being able to shoot off the move going in every direction, but also off the dribble scoring, I think that's tailor-made for an NBA offense. And he is, by the way, completely demonstrated that in his first couple of Summer League games. Through 2 games in Vegas, 39 points, 14 for 24 from the field, and 5 for 11 from 3. All of it on display, too, like shooting coming off of screens, shooting out of spot-up situations, some high-level off-the-dribble scoring. I was really impressed by his ability to dribble into contact and kind of get his shoulder into players and bump them off and rise up for that little floater. He's shown some really soft touch. He's shooting a very high and soft ball in Summer League in both his jump shots and with his floaters. I just think there's always a spot in the NBA for a guy who can score out of the actions that NBA teams run. And Tre is already good at that stuff, and it's only going to get better. Alex Sarr blocked 8 shots yesterday, was giving Drew Timmy fits. He's a problem. Bub Carrington had moments towards the end of last season as a primary creator after Jordan Poole got traded. Bilal Coulibaly is like the perfect 3-man to put that group together defensively. They brought in Cam Whitmore for more depth at forward, which is a position group where they're a little thin. They have a well-balanced roster with exciting young talent, but also older vets like Marcus Smart, CJ McCollum, and Chris Middleton that can either be kept around as mentors and guys that fill smaller roles or guys that you can move at some point for additional asset return. The big thing that makes me excited about Washington is I think their young core has the potential to be great on defense too, which again is a prerequisite to consistent success in the NBA. Like when you're looking at young cores, you want to know why Oklahoma City is so successful as a young core? Because Chet is an amazing defender. Jalen Williams is a very, very good defender. And Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is a plus defender. And so it just gives them a really strong foundation to put little role players in smaller roles around them. I think that this Wizards core with Bilal Coulibaly, with Alex Sarr protecting the rim, they have the potential to be a great defense too. And you ditched Kyle Kuzma and Jordan Poole, the two guys that could have disrupted the winning culture with their kind of general unserious behavior. I think the key for this team is going to be offensive organization. This is a team that if you can generate quality roll man touches, quality pop touches for Alex Sarr, quality opportunities coming off of action for Tre Johnson, a sophisticated 5-out offense, if they can get that established, that gives them a high floor on the offensive end because Alex Sarr has that potential, because Tre Johnson has that natural skill set, because Bub Carrington can score in those actions. They have the pieces with which, if they can be organized properly, to be a successful offense. The team is on a fun trajectory. I'm actually really, really looking forward to watching the Wizards this year. Like I said, Tre Johnson is one of my favorite prospects that I've evaluated in the last couple of years. So it just looks like a fun, exciting team that in a way that they have not been in previous years. Next question. If you had to choose someone non-Flagg to win Rookie of the Year, who would you pick? By the way, saw you after Summer League waiting for an Uber, but didn't want to bother you. Keep up the great work. First of all, never hesitate to come up and say hello. It's a big part of why we're out there. I live in Tucson. I don't get much opportunity to connect with our fans, so I want you guys to come up and say hello whenever you are out there in Vegas. But secondly, if I had to pick, by the way, I do think Cooper Flagg will win Rookie of the Year. I think he's the best player in the class, and I think he's going to have a big role on a winning team right away. But if I had to pick, it would be Tre Johnson. I think that he is going to get a lot of looks in NBA offense that he's already capable of making for a fun, exciting young team. I think there's a chance that he could put up some decent statistical production this year, which could put him in the mix for Rookie of the Year. Next question. With LeBron James potentially entering the final year with the Lakers next season, how do you envision the Lakers' identity evolving? Not just in terms of play style, but also in terms of leadership and marketing once LeBron eventually steps away. I just imagine the season-to-season urgency shifting. Because LeBron was so old, and he's entering into his 23rd season, but even when he was in his 19th, 20th season, there was this feeling that's this is going to end soon, right? He's going to slow down soon, right? None of us predicted that in year 22 he'd definitively still be one of the 10 best players in the NBA. That was I think even the most strident LeBron fans would be this is kind of crazy, right? It was difficult to predict. But the perception as though there was this very tight window to work with, and obviously with a player that has the pedigree that LeBron has and all the pressure and expectation that comes with that, it just felt like every year was the last chance, right? I've said it on the show. Every time that they would talk about stuff, I'd be like, oh, you're going to wait? So you want to figure it out the year that LeBron turns 40 in the playoff run? That doesn't seem like a good idea. Why don't we try to be more aggressive in the short term, right? That was the cloud that was hanging over the team all the time. It just felt like the finish line could appear at any time. It was like you're driving on a foggy road and you're going to run into a wall at any time and you don't know where it is. And we haven't hit the wall yet and we're just still driving through the fog, but it just felt like that wall was coming at any minute, and it just made it difficult, right? And with Luka being 26 years old, it makes it so that it's less foggy and you're pretty sure you're not going to run into a wall anytime soon. And so as a result of that, there's much more of a long-term approach to everything. There, you can see now it being a situation where there's no urgency to make everything happen in this particular season. Now, all of a sudden, all your asset moves need to be moved for all the moves in which you include assets need to be geared around getting assets in return that are not diminishing assets, that are not declining or depreciating assets, right? If you're going to move a draft pick, you want to get a player back in their mid to late 20s that you can count on being good for at least 5 years, right? That you could see playing alongside Luka for a long time. The entire identity of the team has shifted because of that. You don't make a move for Jake LaRavia and let Dorian Finney-Smith walk if LeBron is 40 and Anthony Davis is on the roster and you feel like you feel like you're about to run into the wall at any point. You're trying to maximize that talent. By the way, they made the Dorian Finney-Smith trade before they knew Luka Doncic was coming. It's just a very, very different situation. Now the Lakers can actually invest in long-term basketball culture and try to invest in some continuity. I think LeBron is the best player to ever touch a basketball, but he just applied a lot of pressure to the situation, and that pressure will be relieved when he's out of the picture. You mentioned rooting for LeBron James several times over the years. With his retirement likely approaching, who do you see stepping into that role for you and why? Asking as a fellow LeBron fan. Love the show. The depth of analysis and passion for the game really stand out. Thank you so much for the kind words and for supporting the show. I don't think that I'll ever have a sentimental attachment to a player the way I did with LeBron ever again. I've told this story before, but I grew up in a family that was very baseball and football focused. Both my brothers played college football. It was much more of like at home at night, we'd have the Arizona Diamondbacks on TV. We were always watching NFL games on the weekend. It just was not a basketball household. And I actually just kind of organically ran into Cleveland Cavaliers games in the 2006, 2007 era. And, as a 15-year-old kid, that was how I fell in love with basketball. So LeBron for me is attached to my love of the game because he was the guy that got me to fall in love with the game. And so that will lead to a certain amount of sentimental attachment for me that I'll never have for another player. Now I'm a grown-ass man, and this is what I do for a living. And like I was actually scrolling through just like literally the list of all the leading scorers in the NBA. And I was like, is there another player that I could see myself liking? And it's just not. It's just nowhere even close to that because it's just not the same type of emotional experience it was for me when I was 15 years old, right? But obviously I watch basketball, and there are players that I really like and players that I don't like as much. The guys that I would say are my three favorite players after LeBron retires are Nikola Jokic, Steph Curry, and Anthony Edwards. Nikola Jokic and Steph, I just think the way that they play offensive basketball is straight up beautiful. Even as big of a LeBron fan as I am, I find Jokic and Steph to play a more aesthetically appealing style of offensive basketball. And I just really enjoy watching them play. I just think it's really fun to watch. I was thinking about this with Tyrese Halliburton too. Like, you want to know why the Pacers were so much fun to watch? You want to know why the Pacers are such a rating draw? Why the Warriors are such a ratings draw? Why the Nuggets have such a powerful core of fans? Despite being in a small market, it's because when you turn on the TV and you watch the Denver Nuggets play basketball and you watch the Indiana Pacers play basketball and you watch the Golden State Warriors play basketball, it's very fun to watch because there's so much ball and player movement. Everyone's involved and invested. It's just a beautiful brand of basketball, right? And Anthony Edwards, to me, it just kind of ties into the old school two guard that all of us have always loved. He brings the vertical element that a lot of the two guards in the league don't bring right now. He brings the shit talky attitude element that a lot of guys in the league don't bring right now. Ant is just likable in that sense. But I just love basketball. So even with the players that I don't particularly like, I can find parts of their game that I really like. Like guys like Luka Doncic and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander are two high volume offensive players at the top of the league that over the years I haven't liked watching them as much. And even with them, it's like there are elements to ball handling with Luka that I personally apply and practice in my game because I think it's beautiful ball handling and it's beautiful footwork. And similar with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, for both of those guys, it's like contact dribbling. There's a step back move that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander uses that I have tried to add to my game because I think it's such a useful move. It's kind of like an off the dribble step back where you kind of get in that left hand high hesitation and just throw a quick like kind of jab step in and out dribble to get that separation for that pull up three. Like there are things that I will find in players' games that I really like, even if I don't necessarily like that player, right? Next question. The Timberwolves basically have the same roster as last year minus Nickeil Alexander-Walker. How much do you think, one, a year of chemistry with Randall and Dante DiVincenzo, and two, development from young players like Terrence Shannon Jr., Jalen Clark, and Rob Dillingham could improve the team from last year, or will that be negated by Mike Conley getting older? So first of all, this is just the reality of how the NBA works. When the Wolves made the Western Conference Finals the first year, the year they lost to Dallas, so 2 years ago, Anthony Edwards was making less than $15 million. We were talking about the Wizards earlier. Alex Sarr, Bilal Coulibaly, Bub Carrington, and Tre Johnson will combine next year to make $32 million. Just Chris Middleton, Marcus Smart, and CJ McCollum will make $85 million next year. That's just the reality of rookie contracts and veteran contracts, right? Now Ant is on his rookie extension. He's on year 2 of making a lot more money in this coming season. That comes with realities in roster construction. There will be similar issues for Oklahoma City in the future, right? Like, they just re-signed both Jalen Williams and Chet Holmgren to long-term deals. Shea's already on he signed another Supermax extension. Like, those guys now are going to make so much money in a couple of years that it's going to be a lot of rookie contract role players that are surrounding them. All of a sudden, the individual development of Jalen Williams, the individual development of Chet Holmgren will determine whether or not they can keep winning. Same thing goes for Minnesota. Yeah, it's the young players. It's Terrence Shannon, it's Jalen Clark, it's Rob Dillingham, but also Anthony Edwards himself. SGA looks like a considerably better basketball player than him right now, like a tier above. Like, it looks like you get to those 4 guys at the top, Luka and Jokic and Shea and Giannis, and then it seems like there's a gap. And Ant might be as high as 5 or as low as 7 or 8, but that gap between 4 and 5 is pretty substantial. Shea demonstrated himself to be a considerably better player in the Minnesota series, in the conference finals. We talked about it in the gap in Shea's ability to generate consistent offense against elite defense that's packing the paint because he can get to that short to mid-range shot making that's so reliable. And Anthony Edwards basically abandoned that last year for high variance pull-up three-point shooting, which abandoned him when he needed it in the series. If he can't change that dynamic, if Ant can't close the gap with Shea, I'm not going to sit here and look at, they let Nickeil Alexander-Walker go. That's why they can't beat Oklahoma City. No, like, that is normal. That's like part of the process of the trajectory of NBA teams, is they have to pay young players and everything just becomes more expensive. Now, do I think Anthony Edwards can improve individually enough to compensate for the loss of a Nickeil Alexander-Walker? Yes, I do. It's going to look different. Ant is entering into a phase of his development where his improvement will be less in the form of box score production. It'll be more in like situational execution. End of games, playoff situations, stuff like that, right? Like, last year, Anthony Edwards averaged 28, 6, and 5 on 60% true shooting. You're not going to do a whole lot better than that. He's probably at his peak, like when he's 27, 28, he's probably like a 36 and 6 on like 62% true shooting kind of guy. Like, that's better than where he's at right now, but not dramatically. It'll be his situational execution. How resilient he is in the playoffs. That'll be what determines how good Anthony Edwards becomes and how much the Timberwolves win while he's in that jersey. Next question. To fix the regular season and prevent stars from getting injured in the playoffs, do you think changing the amount of teams that make the playoffs to 4 per conference would make a difference for the league? Regular season matters more and less playoff minutes with one less round. So I would go the other direction. I think the playoffs are the best product that the NBA offers. I love the NBA regular season. We have fun covering it here, but you guys know how it gets. It's like the first 2 weeks in October, we're all super invested as we learn about the teams, and then we all kind of like tune out. Now, us diehards, we still pay attention. Obviously, I do it for a living, so we still cover the league, but it's not like we're all as invested in November NBA basketball. Then suddenly we all circle back and it's like, in-season tournament. Let's watch these 8 teams play in the single elimination. This is kind of fun. And then when it's done, it's like, all right, time to go into late December. Okay, let's all tune in for Christmas Day. This is okay. Well, let's take a break. And then it's like mid-January. We're like, well, I'll start talking trades and different things before the deadline. And then after the deadline, there's like a 2-3 week span where we all are super excited to watch the teams that made trades. And then we're in late February and it's like, okay, we're kind of just in a holding pattern for the playoffs, and all the teams that are down in the play-in bracket are like playing super hard every night, but like everyone at the top is starting to put together some confusing losses that are mostly geared around effort. And then what happens? We get to April, and from mid-April to mid-June, it's just crazy good basketball every single night. Jackson and I were talking over dinner in Vegas. Like, it was like every single night in the playoffs, there was a great game. It's like, tonight we have Denver versus the Clippers. Oh, tonight we have this awesome Warriors-Rockets game 7. Tonight we have this really fun game between the Knicks and the Celtics. It was like every single night there was headline matchups. That's the peak of the NBA basketball product. So I wouldn't mess with that in terms of volume. If I did anything to mess with the playoffs, I would just make the schedule less grueling. And so I think the answer is stretching the season in general with fewer games over the same span. So still start in, training camp in early October, still finish with the finals in mid-June, but drop the regular season to 66 games. Keep the in-season tournament, keep the play-in tournament, keep 4 7-game series rounds. But if you shorten the regular season to 66 games and space everything out, you can have no back-to-backs in the regular season and a few more days in the postseason where there's no double days off or where there's more double days off. So every travel day in the NBA playoffs should be an additional day off. So if you're going to have teams play, on like a Monday and a Wednesday, have them be in the same city. And then if they're going to travel to the other city, give them 2 days off. Make it just so that even in the conference finals, even in the second round, the second round of conference finals are kind of where everything gets like every other night. And that's just a lot to ask. And it wears bodies down and guys start getting hurt. So if you shorten the regular season and you make it so that there are no back-to-backs and there's more days off in the postseason, more people will be healthy. More teams will play at the best of their ability. One of the problems the NBA has now is radical swings in effort. Blowout here and then a blowout the other way because everyone's so damn tired that the team that's playing in front of their home crowd with urgency just dog walks the other team because they're beat and their legs are shot. You'll have more competitive games when everybody's just healthy and more rested. But I wouldn't shorten the playoffs. I think that's the best product that the NBA has to offer right now. All right, 2 more questions. You've spoken of how since the Jimmy trade, especially in the playoffs, Steph's volume and efficiency went back up because we had talked about how he had struggled earlier in the season. Do you think it'll carry into next season and be sustainable? And also, did you change your mind about the Warriors being second-tier contenders based on last episode? I do think Steph will be great statistically next season. I think that Jimmy Butler does enough to lighten his workload, and I think that Steph has a belief in this roster, a belief that he didn't have in years past. So I think it's more likely that he plays closer to his typical efficiency and scoring volume that he had, in the more distant past, like in 2021 and 2022, right? As for joining the top tier, signing Horford helps. I think, we've talked about it. I think it just gives you this preposterously high IQ defensive front court. I think he gives you the best of both worlds, right? A Quentin Post-esque stretch 5 that's probably a little bit more reliable just in terms of his overall decision-making. But it also gives you a guy who can compete defensively in a way that Quentin Post could not, right? But if they don't add a reliable perimeter scorer, I don't think I could put them in that top tier with Denver, with OKC, with Houston. And so that may not happen until the deadline. I don't think it's going to be Jonathan Kuminga. I saw another report that it's possible that Jonathan Kuminga just returns to the Warriors next year. Do I think JK will be a little bit better than he was last year? Sure, but I still think he's a super clunky fit on this roster. And so if they don't turn something in that roster into a more reliable version of Buddy Hield, a reliable perimeter scorer, I don't think they can enter into that top tier of contention. But again, that's not an insult. Those teams are all good in that second tier in the West. Clippers are good. The Lakers are good. The Warriors are good. The Timberwolves are good. That is a really talented group of teams. It's just, that's the best roster Jokic has ever had, and he's the best player in the world. Houston was the 2 seed, and they added Kevin Durant, and OKC just won the title. We're talking about a very, very high-level group of teams there that you have to substantially improve your roster in order to enter into that list. Last question. What do you think a Kuzma plus AJ Green plus first-round pick could get the Bucks? Would the return be enough to put them into the top tier in the East? They are obviously not there as of now. Huge fan of the show. I've been watching since the beginning. Again, thank you for the support. So Kuzma and AJ Green gets you into the low 20s in millions in order for salary matching. So that kind of keeps you out of some of the bigger fish that you could go after. But I do think it could potentially get them a more reliable ball handler, which is what they need. So they got Cole Anthony, and Cole Anthony is fine. I think he's fine as a backup guard. He struggled in the postseason, really with turnovers. He turned the ball over more. He had a time and a half as many turnovers as assists, a lot of really sloppy stuff. in the Boston series. So like, I mean, Cole Anthony's fine. I don't think he's going to answer the bell for he's closer to Kevin Porter Jr. as just another kind of like high variance, low floor type of guard that will on some nights shoot the ball well and look like a guy that could make this work, but often will just be inconsistent and not be able to reach that level. Here are some guys that are like somewhat realistic. Okay. Tyler Herro, if things go south in Miami. CJ McCollum out of Washington, DeMar DeRozan out of Sacramento, Jordan Poole out of New Orleans, Kobe White out of Chicago, Anthony Simons out of Boston. These guys that are in that like $20 to $30 million range that are not what we would consider to be super, super high level guards, but that are not what we would consider to be untouchable by their respective teams as well. Those are the kinds of guys that I'd be making calls on. But like, I'm going to be honest, even if you got any of those guys, I'm not sure that it's enough to make the Bucks a like tier 1 contender. I admire the hell out of the Bucks for trying. And they tried some crazy shit. But it's just such a deep hole to climb out of. And the teams at the top of the NBA are just so good. And you look at like, just think like the Knicks have their issues. They're more talented than the Bucks. The Cavs have their issues. They're more talented than the Bucks. I'm not even sure if they're more talented, if the Bucks are more talented than Orlando is currently constructed. They feel like a firm second-tier team out in the Eastern Conference, and maybe even a third-tier team in the NBA overall, even if they were to make that kind of move. Again, I admire the effort. I just think they have too deep of a hole to get out of, and it's nobody's fault. You know, like Damian Lillard aged out and got hurt right after you went after him, and he was a $50 million asset that's just really difficult to recoup return on. The wave and stretch is like the most radical way to try to make use of him. And I admire the effort, but I just don't think it's going to be enough to turn them into a serious contender. All right, guys, that's all I have for today. As always, I sincerely appreciate you guys for supporting me and supporting the show. We're going to take a couple days off now because I'm getting ready to move to Denver. We're actually making our first trip tomorrow. I would imagine we'll have something coming out later this week before the weekend, either on Thursday or Friday. So just keep an eye on my Twitter feed. I'll make an announcement when the time comes. But again, as always, I appreciate you guys for supporting us and supporting the show, and I will see you later this week.